You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Maybe on the line as Houston heads up to Corvallis this Friday. But before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by DoorDash because it is almost the weekend. Almost the weekend, it's time to look back and crown the MVP of the season so far and who's delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I think the answer's got to be Conner Weigman. Transform the offense. Not really had an offense for 2 straight years now. Certainly not a passing one. And Conner Weigman shows up and delivers in big, big ways. I think the biggest transformation thing, though, has been he's also a runner when they've just had like an only running quarterback for a couple of years now. And Dion did some things well, or Donovan did some things well, but Connor's doing a lot of things well without hesitation. And he's, really kind of feeling comfortable and feeling more into the groove every week. And it's very, very visible. And just like Conner Weigman delivers the Houston Cougars, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays, DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday. You order, stack it all up all season long. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo goes through November 18th. Today's show is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine and 17 bold flavor. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crash. What I love is how portable they are. I can teach, coach, podcast, need stuff that fits in my pockets, and I can take on the go. Big taste in a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost you need. Now, personally, I mentioned I'd take them on the go, pop one right before practice at the end of a long day of teaching. You get out there and have that energy you need to get through it. Also have a toddler, so sleep is kind of not something we do a whole lot. So caffeine is something that's at a premium around these days. And man, 5-Hour Energy comes in the clutch. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Park Rangers Locked On Coogs here. I got a handful of things here, 3 things I think are at stake for Houston as they go to Corvallis, Oregon to play Oregon State on Friday night. First, I should point out, I guess they're technically staying in and flying in out of Eugene and going to drive back and forth to Corvallis the 45 minutes or so for the game. But regardless, I think there's a handful of things at stake this Friday night that people have not put together, or maybe are not talking about enough, or maybe just haven't really sat with. And the first of which is it's Friday Night Lights. Friday night primetime TV has been great to Houston so far. The Colorado game was one of the most watched college football games of a great weekend of college football because it was a Friday night game. And it was a Friday night game that people sat down and watched because there wasn't a whole lot of other football on right then, right? I will hand up, take accountability. I completely thought that, and still think there are problems with having these games on Friday nights in a big picture kind of sense. But your mark has been proven correct in that it does help the TV ratings aspect of this a whole lot. It's better to be playing on a Friday night on main ESPN than on a Saturday afternoon on ESPN Plus by leaps and bounds. Taking that window has really helped the conference a long way. That also means good TV numbers mean people are watching, right? And this is a very Pac-12 after dark kind of feel. It's 9:30 Central Time, 10:30 East Coast time. That's late. That is the college football sickos kind of up late watching college football. And on main ESPN, it's going to be a thing people are talking about throughout the weekend. The results of this will be some of the only highlights that they can play on College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff the next day because other games haven't happened yet. It's going to be a story, and you want that story to be a good thing. You don't want to be Oregon State's first win. You don't want to be the closest one they've had. You want to go out there and do what you're supposed to do when people are watching. You want to be the program you're supposed to be when people are watching. And it's an opportunity to do that in front of everybody. I mean, it's going to be the most watched game of the day by leaps and bounds and one of the more watched games of the weekend just because of the channel and time slot that it's on at. You're on primetime television. You can't flop. The second thing is we've talked a lot, and I continue to be really impressed with the culture Willie Fritz is building. Willie Fritz is building a strong culture. They got a bunch of guys out of the program, got a bunch of guys into the program, moved a bunch of guys around, have done things to build a program that feels leaps and bounds different than the program did 18 months ago. We talked on Thursday about how previous, we'll say, administrations would have absolutely been trapped into a loss this week looking ahead at the next game. If Willie Fritz is going to prove that this is the culture that we all believe it to be, and I think he will, you need to prove you're not susceptible to that type of a trap game. It would be extremely easy to understand how this program would have come off that Colorado game feeling really good about themselves, gone into the bye week and heard all week about how good they were because people are saying, oh man, look for Houston, look at Houston, like all week in that bye week. You then go to last weekend and you see Tech kind of take the mantle, take the keys to the car in the Big 12 with their big win over Utah. You play them the next week, right? And it would be really easy between watching Tech win last weekend and playing them next weekend, like 8 days from now, next weekend, and to just have your mind as a player, as a staff, whatever, to jump to how we're going to take down those guys and take the top spot in this conference, right? For fans like you and I, ain't no problem. We ain't playing. We can think about whatever we want to think about. I don't want to know but we can think about whatever we think about, right? As a player and coaching staff, you need an established culture that stays focused on the task at hand. I think they got it. I think they do. But this game is a chance to prove that. And frankly, it would be an indictment on all that built up and be kind of making some of it ask questions on all of that if they didn't. And so I think that this is going to be a culture moment for the program. So, hey, we can come out of the bye week, go on the road, go across the country, 2,000 miles to the Pacific time zone, going to the Pacific Northwest, all that jazz, and still stay focused, do the job, win the football game, right? Like that is going to be a moment I think they can do, but if they don't, you start finding places to put question marks in that. And so I think that's on the line this weekend as well. And then last but not least, speaking of Tech, look, this is me as a podcaster. This is not Coach Ainsworth because I ain't coaching this team. There will be an inevitable transitive property comparison made between how you play Oregon State and how other people, namely Texas Tech, played Oregon State, right? Now, Tech blew these guys out, and I'm not saying you got to beat them by more points because people do, I think, understand at least that styles make fights. Houston style is not going to have enough possessions in a football game to blow a team out. They want long, sustained drives. They run the football, eat clock, etc. But you need to be in control of the football game in a way that, honestly, because so much of like AP voting and coaches poll voting and frankly college football playoff committee, so much of that is people making decisions based on what they see. People that see this football game because they will see it because it's a primetime ESPN game. People that see this football game need to understand that you controlled Oregon State. You were in control of that football game like anyone else was. That's the transitive property to apply here. It's not that it's ours was 31 point, yours was 33 point. It's not that because Houston plays its own brand of football. But you do need to have the same kind of control of the football game that other programs have had. So that way people understand, okay, Houston is as able to control a football game as teams ABC or XYZ or whatever, right? That's why I think it's important to be okay, to be like, this is a game where we can show that we're just as good as, or just as able to inflict our will upon an opponent as, right? So again, primetime television, make sure you're defining your culture, and it's a point of comparison. I think those are three things at stake for Houston this Friday night. If you got other things you think are at stake, obviously wins and losses, tell us in the comments down below what else you got. Today's show is brought to you by a handful of folks, but Maine Mazda keeps me going. If you're looking for more listens on the week, obviously been previewing this game all week long. We also have Locked On Big 12, some of the biggest things in the conference each and every day. Always go check them out for your next listen. Locked On Coogs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. P.S. We're going to be live even if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, live after the game for at least a little bit. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Cougs, remember Locked On Podcast, your team every day. Go Cougs.